what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and I've gotten a lot of questions over the past 24 hours or so since 9.1 hit PTR about triple potency conduits for Destro, Demo, and Affliction. What's going to be the best combination? What spec gains the most from getting a third potency conduit? What spec gains the least? And just what's going to change? How is it going to improve the quality of life for each spec? So I felt we should take some time tonight and talk a little bit about that for each actual spec. Now, I'm going to say Destro did get buffed. The Chaos Bolt buff is there, but when you look at its actual potency conduits available, they're not necessarily as impressive as other combinations unless you look at it in a 2-target setting. There's a few subtle nuances and variations of things. We'll get into that, but either way, I'm really excited to actually make this video and speculate on a bit about what possibly could be. Now, if you guys would like to acquire any weak auras or profiles you see here, they're all indeed available to you for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions anytime, feel free to do so. I also noticed recently that over about half my viewers are not actually subscribed to the channel, so if you guys want to see more WoW content and help support the channel, be sure to smash the subscribe button below. Thanks again, dudes. Let's get into the video, starting off with Affliction. So we're going to ignore the Covenant specific based conduits here, looking at Soul Eater when it comes to every spec. Starting off with Afflict, we said we have Cold Embrace, Corrupting Leer, Focus Malignancy, and Rolling Agony. Now, I assume there's going to be more conduits introduced for each spec. There's not been any confirmation of that. No one really knows, but it would just sort of make sense. We did get a third potency conduit. Every single Soulbind has their third potency conduit available after their final row they have right now on current servers in 9.0.5. And that's the same across Night Fae, Venthyr, Kyrian, and Necrolord. There you go. So Aff has 4 conduits here: Cold Embrace, Malignancy, Corrupting Leer, and Rolling Agony. Now, Malignancy has indeed been nerfed. They cut it in half. They nerfed it by about 55%. So I think it's a 24% increase, I believe, at 226 on live right now. It's 11 at this point on PTR. Now, there's not really going to be many sims, I would assume, for these early PTR nerfs because it's PTR and things are subject to change, which that's important to keep in mind here as well. But either way, we're going to assume that we're still playing Focus Malignancy. It's still roughly a 11% damage increase on your main target, a bit less, but I mean, Rapture is still there. When you have this stacking with Haunt, stacking with Shadow's Embrace, which is still a thing, the damage Rapture deals is very, very relevant. So we're going to say this is your de facto conduit. You have it in basically every setting and you keep it. You got it here, bam, you're good to go. And single target, Cold Embrace has been your second go-to when it comes to Nathria and basically any single target encounter. I don't really see that changing a whole lot. Keep in mind, they changed Drain Soul and they changed Shadow's Embrace to now be 16 seconds long and limited to 1 target, which for the most part it sort of is at this point anyways, unless you're trying to juggle it in 2 target settings. The 4-second duration will help a little bit when it comes to maintaining this, but being limited to 1 target in a sense makes things easier unless you're trying to shard snipe, because shard sniping means that unless you hit Drain Soul the last millisecond before that mob dies, you're going to remove your Shadow's Embrace stacks on your main target, which is going to devalue Cold Embrace a little bit. It might not seem like a whole lot, but when you're min-maxing things, you want to, well, you don't want it to happen. It's sort of poor class design, I feel. I'm really hoping that Blizzard looked at this again. Either way, we're going to assume Focus Malignancy and Cold Embrace are going to be your 2 de facto go-to potency conduits when it comes to raiding, patchwork fights, patchwork-ish fights with ads. The big option here, or big question here, is you have Corrupting Leer and you have Rolling Agony. So playing with Corrupting Leer gives you roughly a, we played with it a little bit in the past, it gives you roughly a arguably 2.5 or 2 minute 10-second dark lair or so when you're looking at pure single target. Now we tried to make the 1 minute dark lair builds work in Mythic Plus when we've played Dark Caller, we've played Wilfrids, and we've played basically everything with Corrupting Leer, but we've never really played Corrupting Leer in pure single target on its own. And that's the interesting thing. When you attack a single target boss with Corrupting Leer, I've done it a couple times here, your cooldown on Dark Lair is about 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 10 seconds, give or take a little bit, depending on procs, because it's based off of your Corruption or your Agony and your Unstable Affliction having a chance to reduce the cooldown of your Dark Lair by 5 seconds. If you watch the CD here, you might see it get chunked a little bit, like the actual colored part of the CD, like move a decent bit. That's the Corrupting Leer proc most likely coming in. Now, it's not going to guarantee you a 2 minute Dark Lair, but excluding terrible RNG or really good RNG, you're looking at, I would say, honestly, right around a 210 dark layer, give or take. The last two iterations that I've done here, it was 218 and then 207, which, keep in mind, you're also popping your Dark Soul a bit earlier before your dark layer. You're popping it roughly, I don't know, 6 seconds before, right after your singularity, before your soul rot, your soul rot cast, and then your ruby, whatever, what have you, your dark layer, and then you go. But that extra leeway is actually pretty relevant here. You can see that our dark soul has about 42 seconds left here, and our dark layer is about to hit the 1 minute range, give or take. It's pretty much next proc here. It should. And this seems to be one of the worst, or one of the worst RNG pulls here. We're off by about 25 seconds, give or take. But even if you're not getting that exact 2 minute dark layer, you might see the cooldown reduced a good bit here if we actually get a corrupting layer proc, give or take. Even if you're not getting the exact 2 minute dark layer, it's still fine. If you sit on your dark soul for 10-ish seconds, as long as you actually saw a few big procs right there, as long as you're not losing that huge value, as long as you're not losing like an extra dark soul over the course of the fight, or losing some kind of CD window, or missing an ad spawning, you know, like on a Nerva, this might be a bit more shaky, a bit more sketchy, depending what you're doing. It's not that big of a deal. A 210 dark layer, a 210 dark soul versus, you know, a 2 minute one typically shouldn't make or break everything, right? And that's also in pure single target. If there's any ad spawning on any fight, you're going to have probably a sub 2 minute dark layer, and you're going to be waiting on your dark soul for it to come back around. This is pure single target, so I'm really excited to see where this goes as a potential third potency conduit. When you're looking at rolling agony here, it's technically an option. The thing is that it doesn't really do anything for you in single target, besides giving you more time to fill with Drain Soul, maybe cast a Rapture or two. But when you're holding your PS for your Soul Rot in your 1 minute Rapture windows, you're never really in a time frame or in a spot where you have to, like, okay, I'm stopping to refresh my agony, because typically you catch your dots in Pandemic before you go into that. So I would definitely consider rolling agony in a Mythic Plus setting. You know, maybe like, honestly, Malignancy with rolling agony and corrupting leer, playing a Siphon Life single target build in Mythic Plus could actually be really, really good, because you're going to have that 2 minute, sub 2 minute dark layer playing corrupting leer with rolling agony, which really enables the Siphon Life gameplay, probably higher levels of haste here. And then you have Malignancy, and Cold Embrace loses a good bit of value there too, because it's Cold Embrace, it's one target. You know, it's good in one target versus 3, 4, 5 targets. There's a lot when it comes to AF customizations here. But I'm really excited to get Corrupting Layer mixed in this play. Having your 2 minute dark layers in single target, syncing with your Dark Soul, not that weird 0, 2, 4, 6, 1, 3, 6 timing. Having a 2 minute burst window is gonna be nice. Dark Layer might not be crazy relevant as far as the baseline eye beam damage that it deals, but the dot extension, the pairing with Dark Soul, the Rapture value, it's there. And also keep in mind that Nia's been buffed a bit with Bonded Hearts, depending how that goes, but that's a different video for a different time. And then plus, once again, this could also be really fun. Rolling Agony with Leer and Focus Malignancy. It's going to lead to some pretty big Rapture windows on trash packs, and having a Dark Layer a decent bit more often than what we do now, versus not playing Corrupting Leer. Now, I know everyone's excited about Destruction in 9.1. Chaos Bolt got a buff. AF got nerfed. Nobody likes playing AF. Everyone wants to launch huge bolts as Destro. I get that. I agree. Hey, it's gonna be cool. Focus Malignancy is Ashen Remains is in. Malignancy's out. Destro's here. AF's gone. Focus Chaos is basically baseline in PvP now. Things are looking up for Destro. But when it comes to conduits, I think Destruction, similar to how it is in 9.0.5, is actually the most limited. It has the least reach of any conduits that we have of any spec. You have your Ashen Remains, which once again is your Focus Malignancy. This is your Born of Blood. This is your baseline de facto conduit for Destro. You're pretty much going to have Immolate rolling on every target that you're going to Chaos Bolt or Incinerate, whether you apply it just manually or through Cataclysm or through a Havoc window. So it's pretty much a 7% damage increase to your Chaos Bolt and your Incinerate, which is also pretty strong. But keep in mind, Incinerate, Roaring Blaze, damage increase, stacking, it makes sense. It compounds, it stacks, it's solid. But when you get into your second potency choice, most of the time, when it comes to actually playing or choosing conduits, people opt for Nia's Tools Burst currently over Duplicitous Havoc, Combusting Engine, or Infernal Brand. Infernal Brand was utterly insane in alpha heading into beta, but they nerfed this conduit multiple times. I think it was like a 25% increase to Immolation Aura's damage. Like, it was actually more than, I think it was like 5% per stack. It was insane. It was really, really, really good. And the cool thing was that if you were playing Reign of Chaos with Infernal Brand, every Infernal just added more stacks to one large Infernal Brand debuff on your main target. Every Reign of Chaos Infernal landed, and if your main stack, your only stack was at 15 stacks, the second it landed, it was dealing full increased Immolation Aura damage to your main target. Well, they nerfed the crap out of the percent modifier. They nerfed the individual, like the one big stack, to every Infernal having their own individual stack, so it devalued Reign of Chaos further in single target, even in AoE a little bit, because you can tab target around to spread the Infernal Brand debuff technically, but it is what it is. It's an okay choice when it comes to single target. Okay in AoE, but it ties a lot of power to your Infernal, some power, similar to how Light Supremacy was back in BFA. Nowhere near as strong, but it's still there. Duplicitous Havoc is solid in two target when it comes to like Huntsman Baltimore, when it comes to other two target burn fights. When it comes to plus, it's not as strong because a decent bit of the time you're pulling these trash packs and you're using your Havoc to build shards for Rain of Fires, for other spells you're casting. You're not always launching Chaos Bolts. When you are, it's relevant, it's strong, and even like building the shards with Havoc is fine, but it doesn't bring the value that you would necessarily want. I would love to see rolling Havoc here instead. That'd be great, but I don't think we're getting it. But it's dead in single target, and it's just not incredibly impactful in a handful of the Havoc settings we have now. Combusting Engine is a literal nightmare to play with. Just like Internal Combustion, I wish this conduit was removed. It's very close, I believe, in Sims to burr single target, but it changes the rotation by a large bit. And from what I understand in things, I haven't played with it in a long time, devalues your backdraft windows, your conflict stacks. It just sort of makes it a nightmare. And it's sort of anti-synergistic with Roaring Blaze as well, which is, you know, your best single target talent. It just needs a bit of a look. So when it comes to these talents, people are playing Ashen and then typically going into burrs. But the question is, what would you want for your third potency if you're in a single target fight? Let's say Destro is the best single target. What would you actually want? You're probably just playing Infernal Brand, unless you're playing some weird Combusting Engine build, which once again I don't really love. You're probably just playing Infernal Brand, which is fine, but it's nothing like playing Focus Malignancy and Cold Embrace and then having that Dark Lair with Corrupting Lair. It's nowhere near Born of Blood, Fel Commando, and Tyrant Soul, which we'll get to in a little bit here. It's just not as strong, as powerful. You have this 2-minute window with your Infernal coming down and Reign of Chaos, everything coming with like these individual Immolation or Infernal Brand stacks, whatever you want to call them. But outside of that, you're just doing normal damage as Destro. It's not like Tyrant Soul, you have that throughput. It's not like Focus Malignancy in a sense where you have that Rapture damage throughout in your smaller windows, or the Cold Embrace damage that's consistent. It's tied to your Infernal, and this is your best option unless you're playing Combusting Engine outside of Ash in your mains. So you see what I mean? And we haven't even like, it just, if you're playing Roaring Blaze, it's even further devalued. But once again, Combusting Engine is sort of anti-synergistic there too because of conflict rate stacking with Immolate and all that. It just sort of puts Destro in a weird spot. I mean, we did mention that there's probably going to be other conduits coming out, potency ones, and I think Destro could probably will benefit the most from getting a couple more options. But the same can't be said for Demo. Demo is in a pretty good spot conduit wise for 9.1 with just the 4 that it has right now. Saving the best for last here, Demonology. Demonology is the spec that I feel actually benefits the most having its current conduits with 3 available. Also, this is a different character. All my conduits are 226 on my main now. This is an old copy character, so they want to burn through conduit energy on PTR. But regardless, it's all the same. So Born of Blood is your Focus Malignancy. It's your Ash in your mains. It's your basic set it and forget it conduit for Demonology, in my opinion. Hand of Gul'dan having a 27% chance to give a charge to Demonic Core is actually insane. It makes the spec overall just a little more fluent, helps with Tyrant setup, burst windows, implosions. It just makes the spec feel so much more rounded, which is hard to say for Demonology because Demo's still in a bit of a weird spot, but you know, it is what it is. Having second potency and third potency here. I know my camera's blocking the back thing here. Nothing relevant back here, boys. Don't worry. I'll move it for the next video. So second potency here, it gets interesting. If you're playing the Dread Lash build, keep in mind Dreadstalkers are buffed, Lash patch and everything. The last sims that I had run and builds we had seen, Carnivorous Stalkers pulls ahead of Fel Commando if you're playing the Dread Lash build, with Dreadstalkers being more relevant, and it pulled even further ahead if you're playing Grim Inquisitors, the legendary that increases your Dreadstalker damage, which actually it's been gaining a bit of value lately in Mythic Plus and in rating. If you're playing Demonic Strength, Fel Commando I think is the play over Carnivorous Stalkers. But the interesting thing here is that there's been a lot of debate around Tyrant Soul actually being better than both. There hasn't really been a crazy amount of experimentation with it. I know Shayla has mentioned it a bit when he's been, I guess, been testing with it a little while. I don't know where he ended with it, but the really cool thing about Tyrant Soul is that if you're playing Wilfrid's, whenever your Tyrant expires, you get a pretty decent boost to your demon's damage for 15 seconds, 18% here, and a charge of Demonic Core. If you're playing Wilfrid's, that's every single minute. Now listen, you're not a fire mage with Combust here, but honestly, you're probably going to deal more single target damage than a fire mage with Combust. And one of the big things I feel about Demonology is that you're sort of lacking the outside of your Tyrant damage, and Tyrant Soul will help smooth that out a little bit, because when this effect ends, you're essentially heading into a Tyrant, you know, 45-ish seconds later, setting up for it about 35. So I'm curious to see where this goes. Playing like a more generic build here, let's say we went Born of Blood, Fel Commando, and Tyrant Soul. All these effects are really relevant. Comparing it to Destra, where you have like, sure, you have Ashen Remains, but then you have like Infernal Brand, and Infernal Brand is really just damage during your Infernal, and it's not the best conduit anyways. You have Combusting Engine, but Combusting Engine makes things a bit awkward with rotations, and it's not the best in certain settings, like Havoc Windows. It's just sort of awkward. And even looking at AF, yeah, Cold Embrace is good in certain settings, but in some it's not as good because, well, I mean, it's 2 target, 3 target, and you can't maintain Shadow's Embrace on multiple targets anymore. Corrupting Lyre can be good in single target. Rolling Agony can be good in AoE. But these 3 abilities, they're just good wherever you go. Tyrant Soul is going to give you value everywhere. Born of Blood gives you value everywhere. This is the wrong opener, by the way, here. I'm talking to you guys instead, but you get value basically everywhere you go. It's a really strong effect, and one that honestly I'm really excited to play with here. So I mean, it's just impressive, and once again I think it's going to help a lot smoothing out Demonology, not having that weird insane burst every minute and 10 seconds or so, and then you drop off a bit. Being able to maintain or carry through, I guess, that 15% damage buff is going to be relevant. Here comes the actual proc, and we're going to be swimming in Demonic Core stacks here. Here we go, 1, 3, launching more here. More hands can proc more stacks here. Pets are expiring, 4 stacks here. It's actually just insane. And there goes the actual Tyrant Soul. Well, look, we have Tyrant in roughly 40 seconds, which is going to be about probably 30 here, give or take, because we're playing Wilfrid's. It gives you so much more throughput, so much more consistency, and you've still got Fel Commando, you've still got Born of Blood, you still have these effects rolling that you normally wouldn't have if you're playing Tyrant Soul. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I think it's going to do a lot for Demonology, and depending on what happens with Demo, depending how everything looks, because remember, F got nerfed, Demonology could legitimately be the front runner single target damage wise heading in the next patch, depending on where it's at. Destro's Chaos Bolt buff will help, but I think even with that, Demonology probably has a stronger, more consistent single target damage profile. You're not waiting for your Infernal every 2 minutes. You're not waiting for those big Infernal brand windows or whatever, you know. No one's playing Combusting Engine. You're probably playing Burrs as Demonology or Destro, like we mentioned, you know. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. I'm hoping that it smooths out Demonology's gameplay a whole lot. It's relevant everywhere you go. Born of Blood, everywhere you go. Fel Commando, everywhere you go. Tyrant Soul, everywhere you go. I think Demo, out of all 3 specs, is positioned the best for getting 3 Potency Conduits heading into 9.1. So if I had to say what spec is best, 1, 2, 3, from best to worst, I'd probably honestly say Demonology benefits the most from having a 3rd Potency Conduit, having that baseline Born of Blood, having either Fel Commando or Carnivorous Stalkers, and then Tyrant Soul for that consistency, that throughput, that Demonic Core charge is actually really insane. It's going to make Demo even more powerful than it already is. We know Demo's single target damage is good now. probably a little better than Destro, even with the Chaos Bolt buff. And we know that Demonology is insane when it comes to the weird stamina scaling PI effects in game. The best single target spec in 9.1 this, well, 9.0.5 at this point, hands down, if you have the stamina scaling. It's the only spec in the game that benefits from it. You've seen Shelly go through heroic and stomp every single parse in the game basically with the Demo stamina scaling build. But even outside of that, just the normal Demo build of single target with Decon, Vile Fiend, and Grimoire, I think those three conduits bring a lot of value. The same can't really be said for Destro. You're sort of lacking outside of Ash in your mains. You're playing Infernal Brand, and you're probably playing, honestly, Nia's Tools Burrs, I would assume, in that spot, unless you want to go some weird Infernal Brand, Combusting Engine, Ash in your mains build, or if you're playing on a Havoc fight. But that sort of sounds like you're being pulled in 4 different directions, and honestly sort of a nightmare for what I would assume would be less than optimal damage. Affliction having Focus Malignancy, even post-nerf, and Cold Embrace is still gonna be your pretty much, I would assume, de facto go-to. And then Corrupting Leer, giving you that 2 minute, 10-second Dark Lair, whatever it is, in single target in less than 2 minutes in Mythic Plus is actually gonna be a blast. I'm actually really excited to play Aff with Malignancy, Corrupting Leer, and Rolling Agony with the Siphon Life build and keys. It's gonna be a lot of fun. One of the weird things about playing Aff and keys right now is that without Corrupting Leer and playing Rolling Agony instead, it's like you have that weird desync. I've enjoyed just playing Dark Caller instead of Haunt in those builds with Siphon Life, just to have some fun. Big 2-minute CDs, even though Haunt is indeed better. Leer should change most of that. I'm pretty optimistic for the future when it comes to Aff and Demo with conduits and third potencies. Destro, we'll see, but hey, Destro stonks are rising, and I'm sure we'll be getting more potency conduits as well. Now, the Soulbinds have indeed had new traits added onto them. I'm most likely going to be making a video talking about all of those for all the covenants in the next few days, maybe towards this weekend after we update the Warlock feedback document and things like that. There is indeed raid testing this Friday as well, so I will also have that video up here as well, also streaming it. Yeah, but thanks for watching, dudes. Let me know what you guys think of these, just I guess, ideas, the general talk chit chat we had here about the conduits. I'm really excited for this, man. Like legitimately, I love when I don't let borrow power, but when you have the system sort of compounding upon themselves, it gets really interesting, really exciting to see stacked effects like 2 legendaries, multiple potency conduits, multiple Azerite traits going back to BFA, seeing the subtle little interactions that they have with each other and just building on it and going from there. Some specs rise that you wouldn't expect due to some insane synergy, and honestly, like, Demo sort of fits the bill there. We'll see where it's at in 9.1, but it looks pretty good at this point. Any Week Wars profiles or add-ons you see here, you can grab on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, feel free to do so. Ask any questions anytime. If you guys like the video and want to see more WoW content, be sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons below. It helps out a lot. Once again, thank you again to my patrons. Truly appreciate all the support, guys. Thank you so much. The 9.1 Warlock spreadsheet will indeed be up soon-ish, once we get raid testing going and a few other builds on PTR. If you would like early access to that, the tier 3 failure rank of my patron or higher gets access to that before it goes out live publicly. Thanks again, dudes, and I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.